beside him, John Smith, a smooth shooter from the outside. Ala Abdel Nabi will be the center. The backcourt, the big question about this Blue Devil team. Bill Henderson will operate back there with the point man, Quinn Snyder. So your starting lineups, and we're ready to go. Duke has won 49 in a row non-conference games at Cameron Village. Blue Devils in their home whites control, and what a drive down the middle. And a foul is called on the first drive right down the lane, and it goes against Henderson.
Great spin move, Brent going down the lane, but Randall doing a good job defensively, using those feet, drawing the charge.
Billy, what about the Duke defense here today?
Well, one of the things we see them picking up now is their man-to-man defense. It's one thing that Mike Krzyzewski loves to play. They got away from it earlier on this year. Teams were running their offense against them any way they wanted to.
Not much daylight between the white jersey and the blue. The kind of defense Krzyzewski learned while playing for Bobby Knight, but that time they'd burn it. Isolated on that side, and Berry gets in for the game's first field goal. 2-0 Kansas.
There's where the game plan goes astray a little bit, because Berry not known to be an aggressive scorer.
Danny Ferry's first shot is a beautiful turnaround.
Ferry playing in very unusual. Danny Ferry will shoot over him. He can shoot over 6'10" players, much less somebody 6'5".
Get it inside. Maddox is blocked off. There's the game's first turnover. The Blue Devils, if they're playing well, will force a number of turnovers here today. Henderson drops it in on Smith. Smith backs out to the far side. Now Abdel Nabi gets it into Henderson's hand.
Henderson, a good shooter from out there. He's got a lot of quickness. Had academic problems as a freshman, but coming on strong now for this club.
Newton wants the baseline, and it goes over. Abdel Nabi was there defensively along with Henderson. They did a great job of sealing him up.
Excellent job from the weak side help. Now, those who saw Kansas play Oklahoma the other night know how well they operate the backdoor cuts. Duke doing a much better job than Oklahoma did, coming from the weak side to cut that play off. Kansas goes back to his zone. 2-1-2, Randall in the middle.
Abdel Nabi, and he is tripped up.
Roy Williams does not want to see early foul trouble for his club because his bench is very, very short.
That's Randall's first personal foul. 5-2, Duke with the lead. Abdel Nabi slides in with a turnaround jump shot, and it is quickly a 7-2 lead, and this one could get out of hand early.
Well, Mike Krzyzewski made a good point in the opening of our show about fellas being winners. There are 3 fellas on this team that played a great deal last year in their run for the national championship, so let's see if they'll just calm down a little.
That's the first personal on Ferry.
A big overplay by Duke. They're taking Kansas out of their offense right now.
This Kansas team played its heart out against Oklahoma the other night. Got into overtime. 3 of their starters fouled out, and they were no match for the Sooners in that overtime. But they played a terrific game against them. There's a near steal by Snyder, who knocks the ball out of bounds on the far side.
Brett, when you see a team overplaying as much as Duke is right now, Kansas may have to move their offense out a little bit because there's no room for the backdoor cut. Duke's overplaying and denying every pass in the half-court offense. Right there, even getting the ball in bounds is a problem.
Great pick by Randall. Pritchard, though, is picked up tightly by Snyder, and this is Berry out on top. Henderson on him.
Now with the switch, Berry's on Pritchard.
Randall comes down the baseline and drew the foul. So they've been sitting on $13.99 for some time. The Big 8 Conference, again, one of the toughest ones in the country this year, and Missouri has picked the Jayhawks off twice during this 6-game losing streak.
Having a chance to join only 2 clubs on that 1,400-plus mark, led by the University of Kentucky.
Robert Brookie checked in because Henderson was assessed his 2nd personal foul, so that's why Brookie is in the game.
And no drop-off there, Brett. Brookie, the 3rd leading scorer in the club, has most of the time been a starter.
Could be a long afternoon for the Jayhawks, Billy, if they don't hit some free throws now.
Some
two.
Great solid screen on Pritchett. People have to talk a little more.
Loose ball. Duke goes diving for it. Snyder's got it on a break. Berry picks him up. And now Snyder gets around him as Berry slipped, and the foul is against Kansas.
This is a J.R. Reed type screen, Brent, but there's where the defender, Pritchett, has got to get some help from Berry, who was the man who was guarding Ferry. And when a man sets a screen like that, you have to tell your teammate he's coming up.
This is a 9-0 run. Kansas scored the first field goal, make it 11-0 on Abdelnaby's two. And timeout will be called by Williams.
Your lights are on.
So that's tomorrow, Billy.
Okay, here you're going to see how spacing is so important. Scooter Berry back here on Danny Ferry is going to set the solid screen on Pritchett, and then he's going to roll to the basket. Berry has got to come up, do a little bit more talking here to help out his teammate. Now watch what happens. Boom, Pritchett gets knocked down. No foul there. Good screen and roll technique by Ferry, who pulls up and hits the shot.
His father, Bob Ferry, is general manager and vice president of the Washington Bullets. Bob played 10 years in the NBA, and we were talking to Bob before the game starts, and he says if the Bullets draft Danny #1, his mother, Rita, will be his agent.
That could be collusion there.
Kansas now trying to get back in it. They scored the game's first field goal. Billy, they've only gotten off one field goal against this defense. There's their second one, and it rims out by Milt Newton, and it's Duke's ball.
You know, Kansas has a very nice technique of going backdoor and pulling out their offense. They're going to have to do that now and really spread out, because Duke's cutting off their half-court game.
Ricky misfired. Jayhawks with the rebound. Randall gets it into Berry's hands. Maddox, he is quickly attacked by two defenders.
Pritchett's got a chance to take Snyder.
They come after Newman. He is perhaps their best all-around athlete, and he buries the three.
And Milt has had a feast or famine year so far, and now he's back on string hitting those outside shots.
Smith misses. Abdelnaby with an offensive rebound. Great pass by Ferry to Bricky, and the foul is on Maddox underneath. That is the second personal on Maddox.
Sometimes at this close a range you can overpass in basketball, but there are two great passes. Abdelnaby to Ferry, Denny Ferry, who probably sees a pass ahead as well as anybody on the collegiate scene in quite some time. As a matter of fact, maybe reminds you more of Larry Bird with his ability to pass before he actually catches the ball. He knows where it's going.
Bricky, a 6'5", 200-pound junior out of Fayetteville, North Carolina. At the free throw line,
Brent has had two outstanding NCAA tournaments so far, and he's a fellow that can really explode. And I think in the case of Mike Krzyzewski, he liked him coming off the bench now.
Sean Alvarado checked in. You saw him for Kansas. He's number 52. He gives them a little more size underneath, and they can use it. This is a big Duke Blue Devil team.
Sean really suffering from a stress fracture in that tibia and was in a lot of pain yesterday in practice.
Paying a lot of attention to Newton, who is trying to shoot his way out of a slump here over the last half-dozen games.
We're seeing a different Duke team defensively than the one that played during that stretch where they lost 4 ball games. Newton open.
Pritchard takes the three.
Three-pointer for number 14, Pritchard.
Good patience that time, right back into the ball game. And Kansas stays in that 1-2-2 zone.
So 2 threes have brought the Jayhawks back after that timeout, and they take it outside.
Notice how Ferry steps outside. He can pass from there. He'll also put up the three.
Snyder, Duke's ball underneath. Can't put it away, and it is run down by Randall.
When Danny Ferry moves to the outside, you take away his inside rebounding. Kansas doing a good job in that zone.
Open man underneath. Great pass, and it's put away by number 42, Mark Randall.
Set play, good screen from the weak side.
This is the most impressive burst by the Jayhawks so far in this game. They get it on a turnover. They can tie it or go ahead here with a 3. Nice little rally by the Jayhawks. Berry coming down the baseline, missed everything that time. Duke's ball, Berry's in the middle. It's 3-on-2, and here comes Davis, who travels. Davis, who has come in off the Blue Devil bench. Mike Krzyzewski, looking for some depth at guard, decided he'd go with the freshman from Maryland here this afternoon, and he turned it over. Got a little over-anxious.
Brent, people questioned Danny Ferry's speed. It showed you right there. He took the middle on the fast break. He's a little bit quicker than you anticipate.
Well, he's been working with a track coach here at Duke to improve his quickness.
And what you're finding right now, Kansas getting used to the big overplay, starting to settle down.
Misfiring, and Abdelnaby, who checks back into the game, comes away with the rebound. Henderson's lead pass to Bricky. He has to go back into the corner. No baseline there. Now Ferry looking for his turnaround, one of his favorite shots.
Excellent help by Milt Newton. Still not enough to cut it off. West in the ball game now. A good score. He's had 5 straight double-figure games.
Oh, Ferry with good anticipation.
And you can see Alvarado not able to stay up with him. That leg really bothered him.
Back to a 6-point Duke lead. West is number 34. That's Freeman West, a forward who is off Williams' bench. Pritchard comes in. That's the shot that tied the Oklahoma game and sent it into overtime. Actually, he was coming from the angle the other night. Drew the foul outside. You don't get the continuation in the college game that you get in the NBA. That's the 3rd personal foul on Henderson, Billy, and that could be a negative factor for the Blue Devils.
Well, they are deep, however. Danny Ferry, almost exhausted, asked to come out of the ball game. And, you know, Duke is in the same kind of position clubs like Louisville and Georgetown are, and the fact that they can go to that bench with quality players, and so foul trouble is not as important as it would be in a club that's got 6, 7-man rotation.
We've got a shot at freshman Christian Leitner out of Angola, New York. Very promising prospect. Terrific student athlete down here. Newton hits his second 3 here in the first half.
You know, it's hard to understand how Milt could go in those droughts with his outside shooting because his stroke is so good. And he's had real great stretches this year, off to a good start today.
Leitner has it knocked away. And Snyder runs it down and quickly gets it to Bricky at the top. Now they move to Kubek. Greg Kubek, the sophomore from Clifton Park, New York, who started his first game against Harvard earlier this week and responded with a 5-for-5 performance, hits his first shot here today.
Kubek last year 20 of 54 from the 3-point range, and he was only 2 for 20 so far this year. But he is a good shooter.
Minor was fouled by Kubek as he came around the corner. That is Lincoln Minor, a senior from Houston who came to Kansas via the junior college route. And there is Coach Roy Williams, who spent 10 years on Dean Smith's staff in nearby Chapel Hill, North Carolina.
You know, some people talk about paying the price. When Roy first came on that scene, he was making about $2,500 a year to take that job. And he stuck with it, and obviously has now gotten to the big time. And if everybody will give him time, I'm sure he'll put Kansas in great shape.
Shot of Scooter Berry, who returned to the Kansas lineup. West open, missed the jump shot. Leitner rebounded.
Probably should have taken that all the way in there. Had an opportunity to draw the foul and go for a 3-point play.
Both coaches, Billy, looking at their depth here early in this one.
Kansas going back to man-to-man, switching their defenses. Some trying to throw Duke off stride, but it's going to take a lot out of them physically. Snyder
was back as Minor looked for the break, and now Quinn Snyder picked the ball away. That's the 5th turnover by the Jayhawks. They trail it by 5.
Great strip by Snyder. A lot of fellas doing that now instead of going up and trying to block the shot. They strip it on the way up.
Abdelnaby off the fake, has the turnaround, and he travels.
I thought that was a pretty good move.
So we've got a television timeout. Krzyzewski agreeing with you, Billy. He didn't like it. We'll be right back. Well, a year ago, Kansas Defeated Duke 66-59 en route to a national championship. What's their season been like this year under Williams, Billy?
Well, nobody expected them to do well, but they started off very, very well in the beginning. Of course, their schedule was not as demanding. Now, all of a sudden, they've run into trouble. The Big 8 is extremely tough, and you can see in the last 9 games, 2-7. They're sitting on there at 13-99 and trying to join Kentucky and North Carolina, the only teams ever to win over 1,400 games in college basketball history.
Billy, let me warm the hearts of their fans. During this 6-game losing streak, they've hit only 22% of their threes, and today they've hit all 3. That could really keep them in it. Nice play, but it wouldn't stay down for Newton.
There's the backdoor cuts. They are available to teams that want to play.
A great deflection by Berry. Snyder was looking for a little alley-oop, little Sherman Douglas routine, and didn't launch it in time, and now Berry's got his turnaround spot. Misfired that time, and Minor comes off. Manpower advantage, Kansas. They drop, and on the layup, charge is called against Berry. It'll go over. These are Big 8 officials, in case you are wondering. Eddie Hightower is the referee.
You see Snyder getting himself in position. Berry tries to go over him. I think Scooter's showing a very aggressive attitude offensively. I think he realized he's going to have to pick up some scoring because this team needs him. They need him to get up there as a solid double-figure scorer game in, game out.
So Hightower, the ref, and he is working with J.C. Lombach and Mike Curry here this afternoon in Durham. They were able to land their airplane despite this snowstorm, which was pounded. Curry brings the 3 home. That's 11 points for the All-American Danny Ferry.
It's amazing how he can move outside. He's got great range, really some kind of passer. And here we see again, overplay, 5-second count. And you can't fault Berry. Nobody could get open. No screens away, no passing lanes.
Number 14, Kevin Pritchard is back into the lineup for Kansas.
Lincoln Minor, kind of a mystery. You know, he came in, he's sitting down now. He came in as a projected starter for Larry Brown at the point position, and that just doesn't seem to be natural for him.
Rookie short, Kansas. And there's a reach-in foul. Leitner's personal foul. You see how well Duke can shoot. But, Billy, as you pointed out, and I think we should stress it, Duke's schedule, the first part of the season, was not one of the tougher in the country.
And you could say the same thing for Michigan. They're shooting 57%. Not really realistic. But Kansas up there shooting 52%, leading the Big 8. Shooting percentages have really changed. The great Dick Grote here on his lifetime only shot 40%.
Great helping defense that time. Leitner runs it down for Duke. That was Smith who knocked the ball free. He just reached over. Snyder wants to jump past the Bricky. Missed the layup. Now he'll try to come back, and he does.
Now, Bricky hurt himself a couple of plays ago. He can really explode as a leaper, but it looks like it's giving him some trouble.
Berry is hitting the side of the face. Coach Krzyzewski quickly down there. He's down on the sideline. Snyder assessed the personal foul. As many of you are aware, Scooter is the son of Rick Berry, the former NBA great. His real name, Richard Francis Berry. Drew the nickname Scooter because the way he scooted around the house and the yard. Mother Pam had a difficult time keeping up with him when he was a youngster.
Took off the city this summer and went to the big city to play some street ball, try to improve his skills.
Watch the right side here, Billy.
Well, just a good hustle play by Quinn Snyder. He happened to hit the fellow in the face.
Good hustle play.
Yeah, it was a hustle play. I mean, you know, you don't mind if a guy
I thought he deserved a standing 8 count.
I mean, it was a foul, but it wasn't an intentional shot. You see right here, he's going for the ball all the way, commits the foul. Fortunately, you got to
remember that. You can knock somebody out if you're going for the ball.
Sure.
You're a great fight fan, though. I got to bow to you.
Well, I don't like to see any cheap shots, but when a guy's hustling, you've got to applaud it.
Yeah, you're right.
Had a situation where Maddox and Ferry almost got in the lane a little bit too soon there today.
Off Newton and picked up by Snyder.
Kansas doing a pretty good job getting back in their defense. Now back into the man-to-man. They've switched up fairly well.
Look at Ferry's inside move, drew the double team, missed the shot. Kansas yanks it away. Berry trying to regain control, and Ferry is there.
Now, stamina could be a problem for Kansas in the game because they've been contested on every pass. They're really having to hustle on the boards because they're outmanned size-wise.
Randall gets down inside the baseline. And Leitner saves it for the Devils. Smith. What a great shooting touch he's got, Billy. I commented on that when you and I were down at courtside watching him warm up.
Yes, he does have a nice touch. He's an amazing player. He only played a few minutes as a freshman. As a sophomore, he came in as a standout player, but as a postman. Now he's improved his game to the point that he moves outside very well.
Maddox is open. And that's the kind of shot they're going to have to hit when they get open because they're down by 10 with 8:45 to go here. 26-16. What a difference. Remember the Final Four game, how Kansas took command in that one real early? Well, they led 24-6 midway through the first half in Kansas City that afternoon. Of course, no Danny Manning. That'll change a lot of things.
And you know, the regular season game in Lawrence, Kansas, with Duke beat them. Kansas got off to an equally good start in that one.
That's Randall's second personal foul. Billy, near the conclusion of the game, we'll select the Chevrolet most valuable player of the game for each team, and in their honor, Chevrolet will donate a $1,000 scholarship to the General Scholarship Fund of both schools. That's coming up a little bit later this afternoon.
You know, Brent, watching both of these coaches work with their teams yesterday, it was interesting how they broke down the other team's offense and worked on drills that were designed to cut off the offensive strategy of their opponent. Both had very similar styles of teaching.
Billy, we saw Lincoln Minor, who checked back in. I'll never forget that 11-minute burst he had against Oklahoma in the title game on that Monday night. He stole that inbounds pass, scored 4 points, wound up with an assist. I mean, we talk about Danny Manning, but we forget the roles that these other youngsters played that night for Kansas. It was just such a sensational night.
Chris Piper on defense, one of the great performances throughout the tournament.
One of those golden sports memories that Kansas fans certainly will treasure forever. 27-16 now, 8:23. Duke with the lead.
Great steal by Bricky on Gelder.
Here comes Bricky. Through the foul, and that's a story in itself, too. Jeff Geldner has been injured, and he has seen his first playing time here, number 33 in some time.
Well, remember, he was a starter last year, most of the season for Kansas, and Scooter Berry had those great runs in the tournament, and he'd put him down on the bench in a hurry, Larry Brown would. But again, it was all parts to the puzzle that he put together for that great stretch run for the national championship. Bricky doing quite a job getting down on the break, filling the lane so far today. You can't really call this fella a sub. I mean, he's the sixth starter as such.
There's Geldner coming down with the rebound. He had a deep thigh sprain. That's what kept him sidelined for Coach Williams. Maddox out on top. Abdelnaby all over him, and Maddox puts it on the floor. And as he came around the corner, he drew the foul. And that was Bricky, I believe, who was assessed the personal.
No.
So with Billy Packer, I'm Brent Musburger. Hope you're nice, cozy, and warm wherever you are. We had a snowstorm hammer this area last night. Here today, Duke leading Kansas 28-16. North Carolina State's team with Jim Valvano, they had difficulty getting out of town, and they were late for their game in Atlanta against Georgia Tech. And the Wolfpack prevailing in that one. I believe the difference was 2 points finally. In the game, they held the tip-off for 15 minutes before North Carolina State could show up. Jimmy Valvano was short-handed in that one. His plane could not leave last night or early this morning. There were only a few seats available on the first one that got out for Atlanta.
Say one thing about Jim Valvano. There's been a lot of controversy off the court this year at NC State, but he's doing one of the great coaching jobs of his career. He's got that team playing extremely well.
Yeah, they got their own satanic verses down here, don't they? Snyder now gives it up to Ferry.
Oh, what a pass. See, he had the shot.
Abdelnaby didn't come right up with it.
Exactly. Ferry had the shot, but saw a better one on the inside. We'll
come right back to Durham in a moment. responsible for this 10-point lead, even though the Jayhawks have been shooting 50%. They've had a lot of trouble getting off shots in this game so far. Off turnovers, Duke has forced 9 and Kansas 5. And again, the Blue Devils average 21 turnovers a game with this pressure defense. Roy Williams has been familiar with it because he and Dean Smith used to try to attack it with the Tar Heels at least twice a year, and last season it was 3 times they lost to the Devils. Randall gets loose and charges. That's his 3rd personal foul. Out of control on that play, and that's one that Coach Williams and the Kansas staff did not need.
Well, I don't think they agreed with the call either, Brent. Neither did I. You know, Randall had himself a lane. Abdul now be getting there a little bit late. And Randall was going right at the basket.
Randall, his 3rd.
That's 3, and Roy Williams really can't afford to have anybody get tired, hurt, and certainly not get in foul trouble early.
So he'll come with West off the bench, who's out there with Minor. Maddox still on the floor. Pritchard and Geldner. That's the lineup he will use. And how will he try to compensate here?
They go to a 1-3-1 trap.
And they burn it.
Yeah, not very aggressive. And the back line being small, Bricky's a guy who can go right over it. You really have to put pressure on that ball if you're going to play a 1-3-1 half-court trap.
Kansas with a huge size disadvantage right now on the floor. Maddox from the corner couldn't get it to fall.
See how Bricky is filling those lanes and getting open right away.
Perry looking inside to Abdel Nabi. Comes up with the turnaround.
Abdel Nabi had a streak this year of 20 straight field goals. 5 off the national record, set a new ACC record. But again, Brent, as you pointed out, that was when that competition was not quite as strong.
They've turned it over. They're 11th.
If I was Allah, I'd say back to me on that one. I don't care who I'm playing against. 20 in a row is pretty good feat.
This is going to be tough for the Jayhawks here this afternoon. They're going to need desperately a couple of hot 3-point shooters and good work at the free throw line. They go to the trap. Perry's open underneath.
Kansas can't afford to go out and try to double team the ball. It makes
open man is West.
The reason for that is with the substitution pattern by Duke, I don't think anybody had the assignment there.
Duke leading by 14.
Here's that 1-3-1 again. See if they can get some pressure on the ball.
Smith will take that shot. Rattled out, and Abdel Nabi has it knocked out of bounds. Duke's ball.
You know, another thing that Duke has a big advantage when they play people that try to trap out there, when Ferry is outside, he's got such great size, he sees over the top of the defense.
Here's Ferry checking back in. Minor will sit down. Newton will be out there, and Geldner sits down.
The biggest man on the floor for Kansas is Maddox at 6'8". Nice
Great
steal.
Here's Berry. There's Newton ahead of him and West. West gets his man in the air. Abdel Nabi comes over to block him, and there was body contact.
Like
Krzyzewski sends in 3 subs. He'll take a second look at Davis. Number 23 comes in. Leitner also returns, and Kubek.
To show you how deep this club is, Henderson, who picked up early foul trouble, Brent, hasn't even had a chance to get back in, and there's no drop-off. Excellent ball club here. A lot of key recruits have been brought into this program, and Mike Krzyzewski picking up again next year, bringing in 3 more guards.
And perhaps the greatest statistic about Krzyzewski is the fact that every basketball player who has been a senior under him has graduated from Duke.
And no one is transferred out of this program.
34-21. Duke leading Kansas. 5:40 to go.
Roy Williams changes to another defense now, and Danny Ferry just steps outside against him. A 1-2-2 zone.
37-21. Turn it over. Duke's ball.
The reason Kansas is shooting a fairly good percentage is because of the big overplays. When they do get a shot, it's a wide open shot. The problem is they can't get up enough.
tried to move it quickly, and it was a 3-second violation as he stayed in the lane. To give you an idea, Duke has fired up 25 shots and Kansas 14 in this game. There's their 15th, and the foul is called against the Jayhawks on Maddox. They can't get a break.
Well, I'll tell you, Roy Williams said to you before the game, you said, well, you have your officials here for the Big Eight. He said, I don't know if that's good or bad. To be quite honest with you, so far they haven't given him any favors.
They sure haven't. Duke leading by 16. They have possession. 5 minutes here in the first half.
What their double low post offense against the zone. Barely wants something inside now.
Here's Ferry. Doesn't take much time to get that shot off. Their biggest lead of the afternoon, and Berry comes back for Kansas. Hit by Duke. Jayhawks ball. Well, that's how these two teams have done against top 20 teams now in the AP, and neither one of them has broken through.
You know, it's interesting, Brent. The club that's won the most games against top 20 teams this year is the University of North Carolina. They're 8-3.
West off a fake.
I think Syracuse is 6-1, with their only loss being to Georgetown. Those are pretty good records.
Snyder hits the 3. His first field goal of the afternoon.
If you're Kansas now, they've got to try, Fred, to play and use some clock just to get back in the game gradually, because Duke really on a roll.
Davis committing the personal foul, coming out on Berry. His first.
A tough man-to-man defense created a tempo in this game that Kansas just can't stay with. And you pointed out earlier about the Oklahoma game where they did so well shutting off some of that Oklahoma pressure. But today they tried to pick up the tempo themselves, and it's just not something they're capable of doing against a club of this quality.
Both teams are over the limit as Abdelnaby will allow Ferry to sit down.
Pretty fair first half for Danny Ferry.
So A&M got Arkansas on their floor in College Station and went to town on it. Timeout. At the 4-minute mark, we'll take a break. Duke in command, 42-25.
Here you see Kansas playing here 1-3-1. Now Abdelnaby back in the back with Minor. When he moves, Minor has to go with him in the 1-3-1. And watch this lob pass to Bricky, who fills in. Pass goes over. Abdelnaby clears the spot. West does not get there in time. The lob for a good basket.
Now Duke with the inbounds pass. Kubek over in the corner. Newton taking him.
Kansas back to their aggressive man-to-man.
Leitner misfires, but Abdelnaby with a putback field goal for Duke and a 44-25 lead.
That's just too big. We saw Tommy Amaker at practice yesterday, and people didn't even realize who it was. He looked so tiny out there. This is a huge basketball team, this Duke University club.
Foul against the Blue Devils. Speaking of Amaker, he is now an assistant coach. He's over on Krzyzewski's sideline. He's studying for an MBA here at the school. Remember that starting 5 that went to the 86 final? Mark Allery was a teammate of Amaker's. Well, he's a reserve with the Washington Bullets. David Henderson now playing in the CBA. Jay Billis recently returned from playing in Europe. He is preparing to go to law school, perhaps out in California. Johnny Dawkins is playing for Larry Brown with the San Antonio Spurs. He's had a problem with a foot. The nerve has gone numb, and he was playing much better as Berry hits the free throw. And there's Danny Ferry, who came off the bench that night that they were beaten by Louisville and Curtis Ellison for the national championship. And he's turning in a fabulous game as a senior here this afternoon. Snyder in a foot race takes it down. Nobody on the other side. And it'll go over to Kansas. Well, folks in this area look forward to that tomorrow at the Daytona 500 at noon Eastern time, to be followed by the Lakers and the Celtics. That's tomorrow afternoon on CBS.
Now what you've got?
Foul, and now
this has been brewing, Brent. It's between Alvarado and Abdelnaby. And Alvarado, the last time down at court, grabbed his shirt. Now you can see how Abdelnaby's shirt is actually astray right now. There's an elbow. And Alvarado gets called for the foul, but that started the last time down court.
Alvarado is 6'10", 215 pounds. He'll wear the red coming out of Washington, D.C. Alaa Abdelnaby, 6'10", 240, out of Bloomfield, New Jersey. He'll be over in the red, white one. 8 points and 3 rebounds for Alaa Abdelnaby. He was born in Egypt and moved to the United States at the age of 2. He's a United States citizen. He was a tremendous all-around athlete up in New Jersey. He was a soccer goalie and a good first baseman on the baseball team. Newton coming down with a nice reverse layup. 8 points from Milton Newton.
Danny Ferry setting another screen. This time a little pocket by West. Now Ferry starting to push a little bit on the inside.
Danny had it knocked away and out of bounds.
This game's getting a little rough.
Number 33, John Smith, returns to the Blue Devil lineup.
St. John's with a quality win. And that's a big loss for DePaul because both of those teams must be considered on the bubble for the NCAA.
And where does that put the Big East again? They're playing so well against outside competition.
Here's Smith's three. You got to take a look at him down the road in the NBA as an off guard. He's just got too good a shooting time. Wow.
Now Duke's outside shooting's been phenomenal today from the three. Snyder, Ferry, Smith, they all have shot well. Duback hit his.
Alvarado's throwing some elbows.
He has lost total control. There was no need to even throw an elbow there.
And the bench is yelling at him, Abdelnaby. So it's Alvarado versus the entire Duke team right now.
Well, I don't know what got the young man upset, but he had no need to throw the elbows there.
One of the officials just went over and had a few words with Alvarado.
Kansas replacing number 52.
And Coach Williams will take Alvarado out.
You know, he went to Hutchinson Junior College, shared time at the center position there with Ben Guillory, who was John Thompson's selected man to start the ball game to jump center, and then made the NBA. Terry from the block. But with Alvarado out there, the club is so small.
A 20-point Blue Devil lead. They were favored by 14.
Nobody over 6'6" on the floor right now for Kansas.
Newton coming up, and he was fouled by Snyder. Let's take a look at Ferry and Alvarado, and it was the excessive swinging of the elbows. Can't they call an intentional on that, Billy, and have the man shoot in this situation?
Well, here's where Alvarado is starting to throw those elbows, and I don't know why. I mean, they got hung up a little bit on the inside, but he just lost his cool a couple of plays before that, came back to haunt him. Probably what's coming out a little bit on Kansas right now. This is a club with a lot of pride. As I said, 3 of these fellas have been starters on last year's national championship team, and you just don't want to see yourself down.
That loss to Oklahoma probably took a lot out of these youngsters emotionally, too. They poured their heart into that game the other night.
A home game, played as well as they could possibly play.
Yeah, that was a great crowd out there, too, in Kansas the other night. Snyder turned it over. Double dribble. Duke had hit 6 of their last 7 from the field coming down that time, and Krzyzewski now with another turnover.
Jeff is seeing a lot of things out here today that other people aren't seeing. And I'm one of them.
Newton cuts. They overplayed him, and he got in behind Smith that time, took the pass, and it's 49-32. We come down to the 1-minute mark.
Danny Ferry really posting up inside now that they've got such a small lineup. It's going to be hard to handle him in there. Duke stays right in that overplay man-to-man as they've been all day long.
Newton.
He's back in the stroke now. Missed 16 in a row in one game this year. Hard to believe. He's got such good quickness, good shooting touch. He should be much more consistent.
An impressive first half here by the Blue Devils, and you have to wonder if they will have this same kind of high intensity when the second half starts. Kansas, on the other hand, figures to come out. Nice pass inside to Smith from Ferry. Couldn't get it to fall. Had an easy shot. Duke's ball. 10 seconds to go. Plenty of time now for a good shot. And Smith disgusted with himself. He knows he missed an easy one that time.
You can see how Ferry took on the challenge of the double team and just split it. He knew he could make a good play.
Open again. This time Smith doesn't miss.
Well, you can see the respect they had for Danny Ferry. Two players picking him up.
53 points in the first half for the Blue Devils. They lead Kansas 53-34, and our coverage of NCAA basketball will continue with the road to the Final Four after this message and a word from your local.
Anheuser-Busch. Allstate. For home, auto, and life insurance, you're in good hands with Allstate. And buy the new generation of Oldsmobile. Step into the future now at your Oldsmobile dealer.
Well, here at the half, Duke leading Kansas 53-34. You know, the saddest story of the week in athletics really took place for the Ohio State basketball team. Jay Burson, their delightful and talented guard against Iowa, suffered a fractured bone in his neck. And it was a very emotional coach, Gary Williams, who talked to the squad the next day.
I think each player kind of put themselves into Jay's position with 7 games left in his senior in his senior year.
I think a loss that affects all of us, as Burson will be unable to play with the Buckeyes, whom are expecting a bid to the NCAA tournament. Hopefully he'll recover, get on with his life, and even have an opportunity to make an NBA team. Let me run down some of the stats here from the first half. The Duke defense held Kansas to 20 field goal attempts. They forced 15 turnovers and scored 23 points off of them. So the field goal shooting percentages are somewhat misleading, because when Kansas has been able to squeeze the trigger, they've done a pretty good job. That Duke has fired away at 62%, led by Danny Ferry, their All-American, with 20 points. And for Milton Newton, he is leading the Jayhawks with 13 points. Billy Packer, is there any way that you see the Jayhawks can get back in this one?
Well, there's always a way, and there's certainly a will on their part, but they are outmanned completely in this ball game. I think they had a lot taken out of them, as you mentioned earlier, Brendan, that Oklahoma game. I think the key for Roy Williams here is to get his ball club to start just playing a whole new ball game in the second half, play a little bit more tempo. They cannot blow Duke away. They'd have to do it with incredible shooting, better ball handling, and try to come back gradually. I don't think that's going to happen here in this game today, but they have to now start preparing to break this losing streak when they get on back home in the Big 8.
5 Kansas starters back on the floor. Berry with the ball out of bounds. Here's Pritchard will take the pass. Maddox, Randall, and Newton up front.
Go to their little box offense, trying to get some backdoor cuts on the weak side. There it is.
Newton's there. So the first field goal, and they start the long road back, 53-36. Now Quinn Snyder gets it over to Ferry. Cross here to Smith. Henderson is there, and so is Abdelnaby. Smith buries it.
He impressed you, didn't he? He's got that stroke going.
I'm telling you, Billy, I just love the way he follows through on this shot. Broke his hand, you might remember, in the NCAA tournament last year. Missed the Temple game and was able to come back in the Final Four. And Berry almost didn't see the passer. Picked up in time, and there's 2 back doors open right away.
Henderson back on the floor, sat almost 2/3 of the first half because of foul trouble.
Berry off, and underneath there was contact as Pritchard went up and was fouled by Abdelnaby. That's Abdelnaby's second personal foul.
But Danny Ferry loves that ball and head fake and that little turnaround jumper. He also has the half hook from down in that position. Was a little further out than he'd like to be to shoot that one.
Well, Duke may have let down just a little bit here at the intermission. Kansas can run off a 6-2 run if they can hit this one. Maddox looks inside, takes it himself on the drive, and is short. Duke's ball.
Kansas starting in the second half, and they're man-to-man. Halftime probably helped them because they were wearing down. Duke went to that bench very liberally in the first half.
Henderson. Back to Smith. He'll take that shot. And he missed. Abdelnaby with a putback.
The fellow who has not been able to get in this game at all is Randall. Had some foul trouble in the first half, but he's just not on the board at all statistically, either as a scorer or rebounder.
Wanted Maddox on the cut, and winding up with it is your man Randall that time, Billy.
Medical red shirt last year, came to Kansas very heralded as one of the outstanding prep players in the country out of Colorado. I think got in Larry Brown's doghouse when he got a little overweight, lost some of that dedication that he needed, but had his jaw realigned, and this year came back very solid performance.
Now the jaw was broken in 4 places, and a metal plate was inserted to correct an underbite. That's because Mark had a breathing problem. You mentioned Englewood, Colorado, where he played. His high school coach was Mac Calvin, the former ABA and NBA player. He is the Jayhawks' leading scorer this year, averaging better than 16 points a game, and that's only 4 for this game. So he is far under his average.
Well, Mac Calvin, of course, had that connection with Larry Brown because he played for the Carolina Cougars when Larry was a coach there in the old ABA days.
Henderson, Kansas ball. Kind of run they need, some stops, and then a hoop at the other end. They're down by 17. Man's open. Newton didn't see it in time, but he saves it, and here's Pritchard.
A good idea on the pass.
Pritchard's 3, not there. Ferry tapped it, but it was hit last by Kansas. I thought Ferry knocked the ball out of bounds.
I think you're right, Brent. Ferry knocked it out of bounds. Newton went flying through there, but Ferry touched it.
Billy, how about this Wisconsin team? One upset after another. Now they pick off Illinois big time.
Yeah, big time win, and they should have beaten Indiana, had themselves in a position. And Bob Knight said after that game it wouldn't have been an upset. It's a very fine team up in Madison.
Maybe we'll see the Badgers on the road to the Final Four in Seattle this year, huh?
The 2 clubs from that league are making a lot of noise down there in the second division, Minnesota and Wisconsin.
And here Kansas trying to capitalize on a Duke turnover. This is Maddox. Over beautifully was the freshman Leitner to reject that. Long pass to Henderson. Off the fake, he draws the foul. That was Scooter Berry. You got to buy. Let's take a look at this block by Leitner here, Billy.
Well, this is what you call weak side help. Ricky came over, tried to make the play, couldn't make it. Leitner came over to the weak side, now comes up with another pickup. Not a good idea by Henderson.
And Henderson gets it back for the field goal. 5 points for Henderson and a 19-point lead again for Duke. Here's Newton, wants the jumper, and he'll miss everything. Ferry. Off in the hands of Snyder as the crowd chants air ball. Bricky comes down on the break. Offensive foul is the call.
You saw that pass behind with the man behind him. Snyder puts it down through his legs. Now watch this ball. He sees that Bricky's coming. He's going to put it right between his legs. Now, you had to be thinking a little step ahead of that if you're Snyder, in the fact that if there was a man in front of you and you put it behind through your legs to a man coming behind, obviously he's got a charge. The defender's not going to move.
Krzyzewski takes Quinn Snyder.
I'd have told him he didn't.
The game right now.
I'd have told Quinn he didn't need that pass. This game is far from over.
Here's West, who is off the bench for Kansas, going to the glass. 7 points for him. It's 59-42. Davis will try it again for Coach K. Brian Davis, the freshman, out of Maryland.
Well, when Mike Krzyzewski lost Joe Cook from academic problems, he had to move somebody else to give him a little bit more movement in the backcourt. Davis may be the answer, but very inexperienced.
Berry fouling him and exchanging words with Davis right now.
Danny Ferry telling they don't need any of that action. Berry moving for position. Now you're going to watch after the foul here. Davis just gives the ball to Scooter Berry in the chest, and kind of unsportsmanlike.
We've got a timeout. We'll be right back to Durham with Duke leading 59-42.
Sprint Snyder coming in. Now you want to go ahead and create lanes on the break. Now Bricky comes right in behind Snyder and creates an easy play for the defense to stop this break and draw the charge. See, Bricky does not follow the lane. He goes right down the center. The defense is waiting on him, draws the charge, negates what should have been an easy fast break opportunity.
Now Billy, Kansas has picked up only 2 points here in 5 minutes. They're going to have to do better than that. Now they haven't picked up any. It's got to a 19-point margin here at 15.5. So the pressure mounting on the Jayhawks here in the second half. Ball movement's good to West on the interior, and he can't put it away. Ferry has it. Breakout for Duke. And the chasing man, Gelner.
Now, Danny Ferry is not Magic Johnson on that break in terms he doesn't have the speed that Magic has, but one of the things that he can do on the college level is grab the defensive rebound and lead the break without making an outlet pass, which is what Magic has turned into a science. And there you showed again, if you don't have to make that outlet pass, how well you can do on the break.
At the top. Ferry's over here on his left. He goes to Bricky, who fires the 2 and winds up right in the hands of Davis. That's Davis's second field goal.
Kansas in the zone, nobody blocking out. And still big overplays by Duke. Great help on the weak side by...
And offensive foul is called. That's his 4th. Ferry drew it.
Now there's a case again where Danny Ferry may not be the quickest guy in the world with his feet, but he used his head very well. Saw the back door coming, came over from the weak side to draw the charge. Took a solid hit.
That number 35 was retired before the game began. That's only the 4th number retired here at Duke. Number 10 worn by the great Dick Grote, who was the National League's MVP as the Pittsburgh Pirates shortstop in 1960. He was the 1st, and now the 4th. Danny Ferry misses the shot. Kansas comes away with the rebound, trailing it 63-42. Only 14.5 minutes for him. Ball is knocked out of bounds. The other players whose jerseys have been retired here at Duke. Number 43 by Mike Jaminski. He is now starting for the Philadelphia 76ers. And number 24, Johnny Dawkins. Duke's all-time leading scorer led the Blue Devils to the 86 finals. There is Dick Grote up there next to the G-man, Mike Jaminski. And 35 will go up alongside, along with 24, which belong to Dawkins. So quite an honor here for Danny Ferry.
Brent, one fella's, actually 2 fellas' names missing on that list, in my opinion. Jeff Mullins and Art Heyman. Art was a 3-time All-American, National Player of the Year. Jeff Mullins, a 2-time All-American, and both guys went to the Final Four.
Alvarado brings it to the top to West. Gelner's 3, and Ferry rebounds the miss.
Duke just dominating the boards, and now that Kansas has come up a little bit cold, shooting from the outside, they're ready to stretch this margin.
There he is, the All-American Danny Ferry, 22 points for the afternoon.
You know, if you're Roy Williams, you almost have to say now, this game is out of touch as far as trying to bring it back. What you've got to do is get ready for the next game and maybe start slowing down things, getting into offensive flow.
Foul against Duke. Their next game is at Iowa State. And as I recall, that's the only place in the conference where Larry Brown was unable to win with these Jayhawks while he was the coach there. So they'll have a tough road assignment on their hands against Coach Orr and the Iowa State team.
Well, Johnny Orr said that win against Missouri the other night, one of the biggest in his history there since he's been the coach.
Does he still do that? Here's Johnny routine.
He's one of the most colorful guys in the business. Outstanding coach. Took his team to the Final Four at Michigan.
Backdoor with our guy Kevin Pritchard. Got through with the left-handed layup. And it's 65-44. 13.5 minutes.
There's where Greg Kubek did not get over in time.
Davis looks into Abdul Nabi. Against the double team, he'll get it back to Davis.
Somebody has to be open.
They needed to move the ball quicker to the other side.
Kubek was wide open the other side, and nobody's seen him. There's a push-off by Snyder, not called. Drop step. Drop step on Alvarado.
Well, another non-conference team having a lot of trouble in the Cameron Indoor Stadium. That's the 17th turnover by the Jayhawks.
Alvarado not having a good game in any respect.
And that's the lineup tomorrow, the Daytona 500 and also the NBA, the Celtics and the Lakers. You were mentioning Magic Johnson. Weren't they hopeful that he'd be back for that one? I haven't seen a follow-up of that. I'm sure we'll have that story covered tomorrow. He goes over.
Good double team that time by Pritchett.
Coach Williams will leave the team right after this game against Krzyzewski and Duke. He is going to be recruiting up in the New York area. There are a couple of big youngsters up there he wants to take a look at, because this Kansas team certainly could use it inside.
But one of the big penalties that they received in their 3-year deal, in addition to not being able to go to the NCAA tournament this year, are no campus visits that are paid. Very difficult to recruit under those conditions.
Abdul Nabi stepped on the line.
You know what else is interesting, Brent? For the first time in KU basketball history, the team we're seeing right now does not have a player from the state of Kansas. The city of Wichita has put out so many good ones over the years, and I'm sure that Roy Williams would like to see that happen again soon.
Maddox open.
Duke's starting to let down from a standpoint of concentration on their defense. Good overplay and hustle out front, but nobody thinking on the back line.
Abdul Nabi.
Might have had steps on that one.
Big size difference in this game underneath. Minor was fouled by Snyder. Let's take a look at Ala Abdul Nabi hustling as he goes out of bounds after this one.
Good overplay, comes over the top defensively, heads out of bounds and snaps it back. That ball, as you can see, the referee right on top of it, hit on the line coming in.
Minor off the dribble. Rejected beautifully by Bricky. Henderson off the break, and a foul will be called on Pritchard.
Bricky is really one of the explosive leapers in college basketball.
Number 14, Kevin Pritchard, his first 14 foul. Scooter
Berry and Gelder return for the Jayhawks.
You know, Brett, when you take a look at these two clubs and you think back at the championships, in 1986 when Louisville won, Duke and Kansas were ranked 1-2 in the nation. They both made it to the Final Four. And since 1984, 3 of the 4 teams that get to the Final Four are ranked in the last regular season top 10 poll. So I think fans can start taking a look at that when you start seeing if history is going to repeat a little bit. Last number 1 team, regular season, that also won the national championship, goes all the way back to 82 when Carolina won.
Billy, we've got a timeout with 11:54 remaining and Duke solidly in command. Well, we can take a look at our game summary, and that size that Billy has been alluding to certainly paying a dividend off the offensive glass. Danny Ferry leading the way with Duke for 22 points. And Billy, we get confirmation out of New York that Magic Johnson will be unable to play for the Lakers in that game against the Celtics. So again, they'll do it without Larry Bird, Magic Johnson. Both of them certainly expected to be back in time for the playoffs. And that'll be right after the Daytona 500. 11:50 to go. Duke leading 70-46. They were down 2-0 after they tied the game and took the lead. They have led ever since. A 3-point shot made it 5-2, and the game has never been going in Kansas' favor since.
Duke goes to a 2-3 zone. First time today they've gotten out of their man-to-man. And let's see if Kansas can use that three-pointer. They do. Milton hits it.
And that gives him 18 points here for the afternoon. So he has led the way, but Randall has struggled all game long. Only 4 points, 1 field goal, and a pair of free throws.
He had a stretch this year. 3 out of 22 from the three-point line. He is a feast or famine shooter.
Foul underneath on the rebound, and against Abdel Nabi, that's his third. You know, we talked about the light schedule early. There's nothing easy about the stretch for Duke, and Coach K says he prefers it that way. He has a big one in the Meadowlands against Arizona coming up.
Maybe another showcase, Brent, of the Player of the Year with Sean Elliott and Danny Ferry going head-to-head.
Well, Stacey King had a big afternoon today. James Brown talked about that at the half. Danny Ferry underneath fouling. He thought he had all ball.
He's refereeing out there, too. He tried to maybe intimidate the official a little bit by the quick call. Now, Danny, he's been a gym rat for a long time, having the opportunity to play against professional players in the summer, even back in his high school days.
That's how he injured his knee. He was working out with the Washington Bullets, and that cost him an opportunity to play on the United States Olympic team. And when you watch him, you know how much John Thompson could have used him over there in that final game against the Soviet Union. Guys like Sean Elliott and Danny Ferry might have been able to fill it up that night. 70-51 with 10:56 to go.
Yeah, he's putting on a ball handling. Oh, almost picked off by Newton.
Missing that time and yanked down by West. Out of bounds on the turnover.
Well, when you're down by 19, you don't have any reason at all to fire that pass.
18 turnovers by the Jayhawks here this afternoon. There's the pass to Brick.
Oh, beautiful catch. He was actually going behind the backboard when he lifted that back over the front of the rim. Back in that 2-3 zone.
Off West.
But we'll see here where Bricky is actually going past the backboard on this one and is able to save it with a great catch and put it back inside.
Leitner and Kubek on the floor for Coach K, along with Bricky, Ferry, and Henderson. Henderson is fouled. You know, this area has been hammered by a snowstorm. This was earlier this morning. Some of the students were camped out in those tents, waiting for an opportunity to stand in line. But away from the student section, we have more empty seats than you will ever see in the Cameron Indoor Stadium. And that's because of the snowy, nasty weather conditions. And those ticket holders are probably watching us on television in this area.
Not only more empty seats than you'll ever see, probably the only empty seats you'll ever see in here.
You know, they remodeled this during the off-season. They've got some yacht paneling, as I call it, which separates the zoo from the patrons here at Cameron, but they really did a superb job. It's become a grand shrine of college basketball, and I hope they never do away with this place.
Brent, out of the 800,000 they netted in the NCAA tournament last year, 600,000 went into refurbish this place, and 200,000 to endow women's scholarships here at Duke University. So, very good projects.
They enlarged it by 750 seats, so it now holds 9,314. That's the capacity here at Cameron. Named after a late athletic director who did a great job coaching a basketball team early on at Duke.
And a football team. You don't see that often in collegiate sports anymore, where a guy can do both.
Oh, Ferry with a bad outlet pass off the rebound, and Maddox makes him pay.
But I think Maddox got a little piece of that ball. Good hustle on his part. What did Mike Krzyzewski say before this started? These are winners. Kansas kids have no quit in them at all.
Foul going against Kansas on the double team against Quebec. So with Billy Packer, I'm Brent Musburger at the Cameron Indoor Stadium in Durham, North Carolina. And the Blue Devils of the ACC have dominated the Jayhawks of the Big 8 here this afternoon, leading by 20. They were up by 19 at the half. 9:15 to go. Duke, of course, headed for the NCAA tournament on the road to the Final Four Kansas unable to go back to the ball this year because they're on probation for a recruiting violation. None of the players on the floor right now were involved in any of the violations, we should point out.
Fred, this will make Duke 66-6 against outside competition in the last 4 years. There's Kubek hitting one. And you know, out of those 6 losses, 3 of them were to teams that eventually won the national championship. The others on the road.
Billy Krzyzewski with 27 average wins over the last 5 years. This is not just a good team. This is a program that he has put together here at Duke. It is splendid.
Working the triangle. Leitner just too big for Newton on the inside.
Loose, and Leitner goes after it.
Ferry was looking to make the big pass. He still is.
As it knocked away, Duke's ball.
I think that Danny Ferry, he's an outstanding player, but occasionally he'll make mistakes too. Leitner was going right down the lane. Danny Ferry was trying to make too big a play. It was an easy pass.
Henderson's three.
Good students now starting to smell 100. That's what they're getting ready for. That's a walk.
And a clear-out foul is going to be called down there underneath. And against Leitner, that is his second. So the foul before the traveling. You know, we caught a glimpse of those tents. You know, Billy, if I was a parent and had a child at Duke paying $15,000 to $18,000 a year, I'd expect a dormitory at least for these kids.
You know what I'm expecting one of these years? One of these kids going to come with a mobile home, you know, with TV, the bar set up. You know, they forget the tent, you know. Come on into my pad here. I mean, why not? It's the thing to do, and this, you know, this arena has provided outstanding basketball during the Bubis years. You know, the 10 years that Vic Bubis was here. Went to the Final Four on numerous occasions, had a really high-quality program then as well.
West gets it back there. 78-55.
Ferry a little upset right now, I think, with the way things are getting a little sloppy in the offensive end for his club. Kansas still playing good, solid defense.
Ricky off the pass.
Just as I say that, Ferry gets taken backdoor. And I think Danny Ferry set the stage for that particular sequence because they were getting sloppy. He brought it down court with authority. Well, the fans are into it here. It's a new chant, Brett.
They make them up as they go along. And our coverage of NCAA basketball from Durham will continue after this message from your local station.
Mazda MPV. Holiday Inn Hotels, there's no better way to take a time out. And by Bud Light. Everything else is just a light.
A year ago at the NCAA Championship, it was the Kansas Jayhawks traveling down the yellow brick road. Now Danny Manning shooting to give the Kansas Jayhawks their second national championship. Kansas has won it! The Kansas Jayhawks have beaten all odds, and bedlam reigns here in Kansas City.
This is great to be able to finish our collegiate career national champs and playing in front of our home fans in Kansas City is great.
To get into that final, Kansas defeated Duke 66-59. They held the Blue Devils to 34% shooting. Here this afternoon, the Duke Blue Devils have blazed away, Billy, at 61%.
And they've been doing it in all different ways. The three-point shot, which they've been very proficient at, going inside with their great height advantage, as they do right there with Leitner. There's just no let-up for them at all, and it's not because Kansas hasn't been working on defense.
And they've also hit 7 of 10 from three-point line.
Duke's back with that good intensity level on defense, now overplaying every pass.
West trying to come up with it, lost it. Berry goes to the floor, and it is tied up between Kubek and Berry. And the possession arrow turns it over the other way. Well, how about some Cinderellas this week, Billy?
Well, we've been going every week with this. West Virginia, it's hard to say they're Cinderella with 20, but, you know, nobody projected them that high in the beginning. Evansville just doing a super job. LSU, you've got to say they're a Cinderella, a logical one, and, of course, Providence.
And we'll see LSU next week. Chris Jackson, the cover boy of Sports Illustrated, he'll probably go for the week.
I don't know. He's pretty solid. I don't know if we've had any freshman come on the scene that's impacted the way he has.
The Shark will pay a visit to Mike.
Well, the last time he moved out of town, he went to Raleigh and did a good job against Jimmy Valvano's club.
Yeah, we'll see UNLV and LSU next Saturday afternoon at CBS. Kansas getting an offensive rebound and a foul against Leitner. That's his third. How come no pumpkins this week?
No, and enough calls about the pumpkins.
Well, let's take a look at that AP Top 10. Billy, that was an interesting point you made about teams in the top 10 getting into the Final Four. The Sooners playing very well. We saw them last week. Arizona, quality team. Missouri now must do it without Coach Norm Stewart. Syracuse picked off by Georgetown. Florida State a loser to Louisville. North Carolina has beaten good teams this year. Bobby Knight's there, and so is Denny Crump. What a wild game that was between Louisville and Florida State.
Well, the fellow that eventually made the winning shot, Everett Sullivan, not as heralded as some of the freshmen that came on the scene this year, but I think going to be a great, great player and not afraid to put that ball up in the three-point line.
Away by Kansas, and here is Minor. I can't believe they didn't stop it on that. It came right off his foot, didn't it? West for the layup.
Now, an inadvertent kick, so not a violation.
It's okay if it's inadvertent.
Oh, yeah, if it hits your leg.
That was inadvertent.
Yeah,
okay.
inadvertent.
Right, 82 to 61.
You're going to get on these refs about that one. They've had other calls today you can bury them for.
Hey, he's really something, Billy. I think I'm getting more and more impressed by him.
Mark Randall, who has really been quiet today.
Only 4 points for Randall. Newton just fires it up on the double team. Not much execution there, was it? 84-61. Snyder the other way for the layout.
Pritchett expected the pass.
Open at the other end, and Abdel Nabi comes down and scores. That's goaltending. He sealed it up against the glass.
Now, what's happening right now to Duke, and it's one of the things you have to guard against. They're getting very lax in regard to some fundamental things like defensive balance. On the offensive end, trying to make maybe the spectacular play instead of the solid one. You can't fault them because they had this game under control from the get-go.
Duke's hit its last 6. Snyder makes it a 7.
Well, Snyder must like playing Kansas. He had his biggest game last year out at Lawrence. It's the same club.
And Pritchard comes back for the Jayhawks.
You know what impressed me about Kansas in that Oklahoma game? Mookie Blaylock did not have a steal in the game. And when you take in consideration how tough it is to play a whole game without him getting his hands on one.
And the first miss after a run of 7. A hit last by West. Duke's ball. Well, a reminder that tonight on CBS, the Dolphin Cove, followed by the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour, and then the CBS News Magazine, West 57. Peter O'Toole, Omar Sharif, and director David Lean talk about the adventure that was the making of Lawrence of Arabia. They have re-released that film, added apparently some scenes we have not seen, and I understand that is a spectacular movie. So tonight we'll get a chance to take a little look behind the scenes on West 57th. You might want to check it out if you like the movies.
Duke pulling the ball back out when Kansas looked like they wanted to sit back in defensively.
Lost. Here comes Minor.
That's it, Terry.
Gets
Great
it
pass.
Inside now to Randall. His first field goal of the second half.
42.
You know, Minor looks like he's the kind of guy that could play in a playground game very, very well. He's got a lot of skill.
Randall knocks that ball out of bounds. It came down to Kansas or Duke for Randall. He selected to go, and here is Alvarado, who had some aggressive moments at least in the first half. West will sit down.
He better hope that this game ends in a hurry because any more altercations on his part, and he will become a fan favorite here, and that's no fun when you're a visitor.
Alvarado hands it up, and Here comes Pritchard with the 3. Hits the iron. Ferry's got it. Open man is Snyder. There's his roommate.
He had 21 points and 11 assists last year against Kansas.
Alvarado jumps it up left-handed. You know, Ferry leads this Duke team, averaging better than 22 points a game. He's hit 56%, but he also leads them in rebounding, and he has scored 87 points from the line this year. He hits better than 73%. So Danny Ferry does a little bit of everything. He also handles the ball a lot on top, we've noticed this afternoon.
Well, Brent, 2 years ago, he led the club in scoring, rebounding, and assists from a front court position, and that is almost impossible to do in Division I college basketball.
This afternoon, Billy has had 24 points, 10 rebounds, and 4 assists, making 26.
Had 58 for his all-time high against Miami this year.
Randall. Got to stay out of the big fella's way when he gets loose like that. 92-71 here. 2:46 to go for Roy Williams. We'll take a break, and we'll come right back to Durham in just a moment. In the background, your future leaders of tomorrow. Doctors, lawyers, and here this afternoon, old Rocco's in love with this basketball team.
You know, Brent, I don't know of another Division I program of this caliber that allows the students to sit and ring the floor. And I think Duke ought to be complimented by that. It's not the almighty dollar that gets the key seat. And that's why they put on such a great show. They're very inventive with these cheers. I don't know how they do it.
Oh, when you get 1,200 on your board, you ought to be able to invent it. You know the language a little
but
bit.
how do they spread the word around what they're going to say? I mean, they make this stuff as they go along. I mean, this is not rehearsed. But they have one Danny, no Danny early today. They're pointing to one end of the court where Danny Ferry is, the other end where Danny Manning is no longer. I mean, they dream them up as they go.
Hey, when you came in here with Wake Forest, did you ever win a game in front of these guys?
Yes. Answered that one in a hurry. Shut you off. But also, I played in one where we were down by 40.
That's the head trainer there with Danny Ferry. Had another spectacular afternoon. His mom and dad are here. How many tickets did the Ferry family need?
They had 9 actual family members and about 26 tickets all told.
Well, a reminder, Daytona 500 tomorrow come your way. That's at noon Eastern time. Then it'll be the Celtics and the Lakers.
Snyder comes out. Good day all the way around. You know, Brent, he may have to be the guy, if you said if they're going to make it to the Final Four this year, you'd have to say Quinn Snyder would have to have some kind of NCAA tournament, play the highest of level, because if there's any area where they really need the spark plug, it'd be at that point guard position. He's capable, but he's going to have to do it for him. Mike Krzyzewski comes off the bench with another high school All-American in Crawford Palmer.
Kansas foul number 34, Freeman West, his second.
The Freeman West, you know, Brent, the SIDs around the country do an incredible job for us. There was a mistake I found, though, in the Kansas yearbook. It has down there Freeman West, and he played at East Chicago, Indiana High School. It said his coach was Darnell Adell, who played with David Thompson at NC State. Well, he didn't play with David Thompson, but he did coach Timmy Stoddard, who did, and had other guys that made it to the Final Four. He had Junior Bridgman and Pete Turgevich. Bridgman at Louisville and Turgevich at UCLA. So one of the great high school coaches in America. But just a little slip-up for the Kansas brochure. West, for West, that's his 6th game in a row in double figures. He can be moving that starting lineup.
Pritchard in for the layup. A minute and a half to go.
You know what the crazies want, Brent? They want 2 more field goals in here.
They want blood is
That's
what
right.
this group wants.
They must have something special.
Foul is on Kansas is number 21. His second.
Well, right in the midst of a 6-game losing streak, you come to Durham, take on one of the tougher teams in the country, but certainly Coach Roy Williams will know better days ahead as Kansas continued that North Carolina tradition by taking an assistant coach off Dean Smith's staff.
And yesterday, when Roy got into the area, he had the Kansas team go through the Dean Smith Dome over there, and Dick Hart, the former great coach at Kansas, who's now the assistant at Carolina, I gave them a tour.
Better he should have borrowed J.R. Reed for that. 97-73. Williams on the losing end. This will be their 7th straight setback. I think that's their longest losing streak since the 61-62 year. And Iowa State on the road is next. So it doesn't get a whole lot easier for them. That ovation is for George Bergen, a seldom used center who has replaced Brickey. Number 42 is out there. Buckley is also out there along with Palmer as Coach K sweeps the bench clean here for the final minute.
It almost was Virgin, Buckley, Brickley in the front line. That'd drive you crazy.
You got the play-by-play for the last minute, kid. Here comes Miner. He gives it up. And Pritchard with 14 points for the afternoon. Davis. Score the field goal. Basket counts, and he'll shoot
For the 100. This young man, an outstanding high school performer as well. Mike Krzyzewski not taking any mediocre type players. Makes a good move on the inside and powers it back in.
Kansas replacing Wendell. Brian Davis on the line for 1 shot.
for the 100. And more.
Nice pass.
West hits the field goal.
Nice pass by Minor.
You know, West has had a good afternoon.
Yes, he
He's
has.
scored 16 here for the Jayhawks. Well, he's played well. Goes over. Well, for Krzyzewski and Duke, their next game will be against Georgia Tech. And that's on Monday night.
Well, if they played without Tommy Hammonds today, he may be able to come back as the same kind of injury as Curtis Ellison had.
So Duke's record now 19-4, and we'll be right back. Daytona 500 tomorrow, and here today our Chevrolet most valuable players are Milt Newton from Kansas and Danny Ferry from Duke. A check in the amount of $1,000 is donated to each school's General Scholarship Fund to further assist qualified students in their chosen field of endeavor. Duke 102, Kansas 77. A final word in just a moment. Rebels take dead aim at another Final Four. For Billy Packer, I'm Brent Musburger saying so long from Durham, North Carolina, where our final score, Duke 102, Kansas 77. This has been a presentation of CBS Sports, home of the NCAA Championship.